Hello everyone, good morning. It is the Wake Up. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the show. Washington is still in a deep freeze, little to no action still over this whole government shutdown business. Alright, we're gonna give you everything you need to know today about what in the world is going on in Washington and a little bit more. So you've come to the right place. It's the Wake Up. Thank you again for returning to Wake Up with us this week. A little punctuated week because of Martin Luther King Day. We're going to get right into it. So, longest running government shutdown, a crumbling base, multiple investigations, and a slowing economy, as well as leaked outbursts and the death of deal-making. These are the things that define President Trump's halfway mark in the White House, casting a shadow over the nation's presidential campaign and threatening to imperil any semblance of legislative normalcy in the 2 years ahead. People saw him as some sort of business wizard. That's all disintegrating. It's like McDonald's not being able to make a hamburger, Republican strategist told Mike Murphy said to the Washington Post, and I think he's got a little bit of good point there, because as silly as it seems, if you looked at all the facts before Trump's presidency, what was publicly available, how bad he was at actually being a business maker. I mean, he's been in business, like, he's bankrupted 6 times. Like, he's not a very good, and he's gotten so many bails and loans from his father that it feels hard to believe that he's actually a business, he's a business aficionado, but still some people do believe it, and now that's all kind of going away at this point, and it makes sense. So the shutdown has also accentuated several fundamental traits of the Trump's presidency: his apparent shortage of empathy, in this case for furloughed workers, his difficulty accepting responsibility, this time for a crisis he said he would be proud to instigate, his tendency for revenge when it comes to one-upping political foes, and his seeming misunderstanding of democratic motivations. These setbacks are lifelong patterns evidenced throughout Trump's career business. The Times' Ross Boutner and Maggie Haberman said, from his lack of public empathy for unpaid workers, echoing his treatment of workers on his real estate project, to his, quote, ever-changing positions. If you don't care what collateral damage you create is, then you have a potential advantage. He used a hammer, this said Tony Schwartz, Trump's biographer. He used a hammer, deceit, relentlessness, and an absence of conscience as a formula for gaining what he wanted. And yeah, this seems to be definitely the strategy he's taken into his presidency so far, with a healthy dose of incompetence as well. 2 books now are being released by Trump's allies in the coming weeks: Chris Christie's Let Me Finish and Cliff Sims' Team of Vipers, My 500 Extraordinary Days in the Trump White House, detailed the chaotic White House on the record as a result of the president unfamiliar with legislating, exacerbated by Trump's preoccupation with settling his course. This is my favorite time. Like, every 6 months or so, we get some really good tidbits from the Trump White House. So, Phil Rucker of the Washington Post reviewed Cliff Sims' book, saying that in it, the former aide depicts Trump as deeply suspicious of his own staff. He recalls a private huddle in which he and Keith Schiller, the president's longtime bodyguard and confidant, helped Trump draw up an enemies list with a Sharpie on White House stationery. We're going to get rid of all the snakes, even the bottom feeders, Trump told them. Sims recounts then that Chief of Staff John Kelly, who once confided to him in a moment of exasperation, saying, quote, "This is the worst job I've ever had. People apparently think I care when they're right that I might be fired. If that ever happened, it would be the best day I've had since I've walked into this place," according to Rucker. So that's a direct quote from Cliff Sims in this book, which is a very funny quote. And you gotta be honest. I mean, his desire to be fired does kind of make sense there. At times, Trump evinced less rage than just disinterest. Sims recounts one time when House Speaker Paul Ryan was in the Oval Office explaining the ins and outs of the Republican health care bill to the president. As Ryan droned on for 15 minutes, Trump sipped on a glass of Diet Coke, peered out the Rose Garden, stared aimlessly at the walls, and finally walked out. Rucker writes of Trump's apparent lack of interest in policy details. Oh, like this is the thing people forget. In between all the inhumanity, all the cruelty, it just becomes increasingly clear that he is just an idiot when it comes to caring about policy. He's not even serious, not even a passing interest when it comes to policy. None whatsoever. And you gotta have it explained to him in colorful graphs and everything else like that. It's pretty crazy. So, as a plan to end the government shutdown, Trump's speech proposing 3 years of deportation protections for some immigrants in the exchange for just 3 years for some immigrants in exchange for $5.7 billion in border wall funding. That pretty much got us nowhere. For full coverage on that, you can check out Newsflash, the most recent new episode of Newsflash. Was a non-starter rejected by Democrats before he even delivered the speech from the White House on Saturday afternoon, according to the Post. Still, though, Mitch McConnell's going to put it on the floor. And overseas, despite Trump's absence, his domestic problems were top of mind for executives and attendees at the World Economic Forum in Davos, who expressed worry that the United States was undermining its economy and the rest of the world via a trade war that was the longest partial government shutdown in U.S. history, according to Heather Long and Anna Fifield of the Post. They're not happy. Not happy. Business people are not happy with President Trump over the shutdown and this trade war. And I personally say, okay, sorry guys, I'm really focused about your concerns. I'm so sorry. No, honestly, I don't think it's. I think the shutdown and the trade war are pretty much pointless and stupid and should probably end. But again, it's not because of the business. It's not out of any sort of need for satisfying the people who attend the Davos gathering. So yeah, Mark Warner of This Week says, Senator Mark Warner from Virginia about This Week saying, as awful as the shutdown has been so far, it's about to get exponentially worse next week. Next Thursday will be the second paycheck that people miss, as the first of the month is when mortgages are due, electric bills are due, he says. He's absolutely right about that. Saying, as he said out at a food bank as he handed out bags of potatoes and apples, one of the things I've been concerned about is how the administration is picking and choosing who they call back to work, and these folks have to get paid. And he's absolutely right about that. And still, though, no deal seems to be in sight, and Trump unwilling at this time to compromise. All right, so we are going to now turn down to Rudy. What is going on with Rudy? Is he playing some sort of weird game? We just have no idea. All right, now we turn to this is the investigations angle of today's show. The president's personal lawyer walked back commenting on Sunday that discussions about a Trump Tower deal in Moscow lasted from the day I announced to the day I won. That's a quote about Trump. Giuliani said, paraphrasing Trump. In a statement Monday, Giuliani said his comments were purely hypothetical and not based on any conversation with the president. Tapes. What? Who said anything about tapes? Rudy did. An interview with New Yorker's Isaac Chotnier, responding to the BuzzFeed report the president told longtime fixer Michael Cohen a lie in that timeline. About that timeline of the Moscow Trump Tower deal. Giuliani claims that Trump never talked to Cohen nor directed him to lie, and said there are no tapes, no texts. There's no corroboration that the president told him to lie. That's what the special counsel said, that the story was inaccurate. That's why the special counsel said the story was inaccurate, so they couldn't corroborate it with any text. That's what he said. But still, tapes. He also mentioned tapes. Rudy referred to tapes he had listened to during the before quickly correcting himself. I shouldn't have said tapes. They were alleged. They alleged. There were texts and emails that corroborated what Cohen was saying. The president told him to lie. There were no texts, there were no emails, and the president never told him to lie. And no tapes either. Is Giuliani concerned about his legacy? That's a question you always ask when you know you're on a good point. Absolutely. I'm afraid it will be on my gravestone. Rudy Giuliani, he lied for Trump. Somehow, I don't think it will be. But if it is, so what do I care? I'll be dead. I figure I'd explain to St. Peter. He'll be on my side because I am so far. I don't think as a lawyer I've ever said anything that's untruthful. I have a sense of ethics that is as high as anyone you can imagine. I've been doing this forever. I'm doing what I believe in. I may not be always right, but I'm doing what I believe. And I believe this man has been treated horribly, including this BuzzFeed thing. Yeah, so still, still off his rocker. Rudy Giuliani continues to be. All right, so to the people, what's going on with them? We will be taking a look. So, what the expletive were we thinking? GOP senators maintain that they're facing equal, if not more, insistence to stand behind Trump and his push for the wall during the shutdown, as 800,000 affected federal workers are going without paychecks. But there are signs that even some folks, even those who voted for Trump, are becoming frustrated with him because of the shutdown, with some regretting their support for the president. But again, that seems to be a very slim minority at this time. A report from Michigan reads, 2 years ago, Jeff Doddart was fed up with politics. He wanted to shake up the status quo. He didn't mind sending a message to the establishment, and frankly, he liked the idea of a disruptive president. But the 49-year-old retired Navy reservist had some second thoughts. What the expletive were we thinking? He asked one night inside a Walmart here, in an area of a blue-collar suburban Detroit that helped deliver the presidency to Trump. So yeah, suburban Detroit, blue-collar area. That's a very interesting. Like the working class, but suburban areas. Not essentially like the rural areas, like that are the core point of support for President Trump. But like those areas, if more people like him start feeling that way, it could be very interesting to watch like where that goes in the future. But still, I don't think there's any real signs of change emerged yet. Here, far from the nation's capital, this is from Macomb County, Michigan, from another dispatch from the Washington Post. Here, far from the nation's capital, an area not dominated by federal workers, the government shutdown is resonating in an unusual way. A trampoline park is giving government employees and their families an hour of free jumping. Local credit unions offering low-interest loans for furloughed employees who need to replace the lost salaries. Some local governments in the area are beginning to allow federal workers to defer payments on property taxes, utility bills, and parking tickets. Food drives are being discussed to help TSA workers at Detroit's airport, and yoga studios offering free classes for federal employees. So that's pretty nice. Like the whole town's kind of pitching in there, but still people are still somewhat getting pissed about it. One of the president's only bipartisan achievements, though, has also been stymied due to the shutdown. Because the Times' Ferris Stockman reports the shutdown has delayed the implementation of criminal justice reform, specifically with regards to establishing a system for evaluating inmates to determine which ones could be released without threatening the public safety. So yeah, that's even being stifled as well. Over at the TSA, the number of agents who failed to show up for duty Sunday hit a record 10%. The fact that they're still working either way is amazing. Jon Bon Jovi is the latest celebrity through his efforts behind feeding federal workers. He's going to open up free meals for them at his foundation's nonprofit restaurant, JBJ Soul Kitchen. And President Trump's approval rating has slipped to a 39%, and he lost some key portions of his base including white evangelicals and suburban men, according to an NPR NewsHour Marist poll. So 39% is where he's at now. Another candidate has jumped in. That was yesterday morning when we were off. Kamala Harris dropped her hat in the ring for 2020 on MLK's birthday, making her the fourth female candidate to make it official in what is shaping up to be the most diverse Democratic presidential field in history. The core of my campaign is the people, Harris told reporters yesterday at Howard University, the HBCU she attended. Nobody is living their life through the lens of one issue, and I think what people want is leadership that sees through them and the complexity of their lives and pays equal attention to their needs. Let's not put people in a box. So that's what she says. Harris will hold her first campaign event on Friday in South Carolina, where black voters are the dominant force in the Democratic primary, rather than starting off by visiting in Iowa and New Hampshire, which are two predominantly white states. So yeah, that'll be a big struggle for the progressives in the race, mainly Bernie Sanders, who have struggled last time with Hillary Clinton, as they struggled to kind of like win out those black states, and that's going to be very interesting. Joe Biden, speaking at an event in Washington, at which Michael Bloomberg also appeared, said he regretted tough-on-crime legislation in 1980s and 1990s, expressing remorse particularly over a bill that created legal standards for powdered cocaine and street crack cocaine, different legal standards, even though they're pretty much the same thing, and obviously the standards hurt black and brown people more. We were told by experts